Hello and welcome to the Elder Tree podcast. My name is Twiggy Dawn. I'm the founder of the Elder Tree and Alchemilla Herbals, and I reside on Jitterbug land here in far north Queensland. You are listening to the Herbal Education segment, where each new moon I invite a myriad of plant wisdom keepers to chat about the world of herbal education, about their passions and motivations, and their dreams for the future of herbal medicine education in Australia. This podcast is brought to you by the Elder Tree, a non-for-profit organisation whose mission is putting the medicine in the hands of the people. One of the ways that we are doing this is through this podcast. If you would like to go deeper with the podcast journey while supporting the Elder Tree for as little as $2 per week, then you can become a member of our Patreon. Thanks to all of the people and plants who have helped to make this podcast possible. Christopher Smith from Tinderry Mountain Herbs is an extraordinary person doing some really important work in the herbal community in Australia. Christopher is a herbalist and a horticulturalist and a herbal educator who draws on over 40 years of horticultural experience to grow a line of rare and endangered herbs at the herb farm that he runs called Tinderry Mountain Herbs, which is on Tinderry Mountain near Canberra. These herbs are supplied to herbalists in Australia, and Christopher has the noble vision of assisting Australia to become self-sufficient with its herb supply, in particular Arnica, Goldenseal and Solomons Seal. This is a vision that we both share and are actioning in our own ways. Christopher is passionate about sharing the world of plants and medicinal herbs with people. He runs regular workshops and classes through the Heirophant in Canberra, which is now called the H Dispensary. And he loves teaching people how to make an array of herbal preparations and grow herbal medicine. He also runs online courses and classes, and he has a potent online offering called the Herbology Hub, which I recommend you check out. And in the show notes, there are links to his offerings. So in this conversation, we explore the diverse pathways within herbal medicine, some of the diverse pathways within herbal medicine, and we emphasize the importance of community, curiosity, and exploring the non-linear journey of becoming a herbalist. Many shades of herbalism. We discuss the need for various niches in the herbal field, the significance of growing and the guardianship of medicinal herbs, and the creation of supportive ecosystems for herbalists. We talk a lot about the unique experiences and the importance of fostering connections within the herbal community. Christopher and I have been supporting each other's journey for many years now, as we're both unified in our goals of seeing Australia become more self-sufficient with our herb supplies. So yeah, we welcome you to join us, and I hope that you enjoy this chat. I think it's the longest episode so far on the podcast. It's always hard to cut it short. We could just talk for days if you let us go. But yeah, random fact, I interviewed Christopher last time on the autumn equinox in 2023 and over 2 years ago, and this time the episode is released only a few days after the winter solstice. So yeah, there's something really potent in these cardinal points, and I love that the Christopher, this beautiful herbal elder, that his wisdom is getting shared in this point of the year where we really need to bring some more light into the darkness. Hi, Christopher. Welcome back onto the Elder Tree podcast. It's so good to have you again here today.
Good morning, Tui. It's always a delight to talk with you. And here in the Tinderry Mountains, it's snowing this morning, which is always special. So,
Nice. Got the fire going.
absolutely.
So it's been over 2 years since we've had you on the podcast, and a lot's happened in that time. But I know that something recent that's gone on is that you have done a presentation for Switched On Health. So just as a bit of a starting point, would love to hear about that presentation and some of the key points that you shared in the presentation for our listeners.
Yes, certainly. As you said, I talked to Switched On Health's students. I'd met Switched On Health at the Estuary Learning Conference in March this year, and they said, "Hey, come and talk to our students." And they wanted me to talk particularly on what options there were for people who were studying herbal medicine but didn't necessarily want to go into down the clinical path. And I thought, well, that's where I'd been for a long time. So it was really good to put together a presentation and talk to them. And also I found, and just putting things together, rediscovering things that I'd done that I'd forgotten about, and the diversity of different activities I did. So listeners may not be aware, I started out life as a horticulturalist, and we might just dig back into that a little. And so we're going to go way, 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 way back into the 1970s when I was a nerdy, introverted, young, impecunious boy in rural South Australia in Robe. And I went with my dad and my brother. We went and visited our uncle and auntie at Kingston, which is about 40 k's away. So we're talking southeast South Australia on the coast. So we go and visit Auntie Kath and Uncle Jack, and they give me a gift of all these plants from their garden because they were pretty keen gardeners. I don't know whether they saw something or intuited something, but anyway, we came home with a motley collection of jam tins and plants and things, and put them on the tank stand at home. We didn't have any kind of growing structure or anything there. And I looked at them, and then I thought, well, so if you've got plants, you need a bush house or something to grow them in. So I then went out, because we were surrounded by, native vegetation everywhere. Went out in the bush with a shovel and an axe, started cutting poles, started cutting brush, used recycled wire from the newsagent, build this brush house, And we had a book by Noel Lothian, who was a previous director of the Adelaide Botanic Garden, and he had a whole section about how to build your brush house. So I took inspiration from that and just sort of fiddled around and made something. And then, as I said in the Switched On Health course talk, proceeded to grow and kill plants. And I knew nothing. I didn't know about potting mix or fertilizer. So I'd be mixing sort of bits of leaf mold and sand and dirt, and I'd scrounge up pots and things, and we'd grow things. And when we went into a regional town to do shopping, Millicent, I'd save up my pocket money, and I was into ferns. So, I'd buy a fern and bring it home. And as I said in the talk, proceed to slowly kill it. Because I just didn't know anything. But it was fun. It was interesting. It was engaging. And the plants really got me in. The horticultural bug really bit. And I was just sharing with you earlier, Twiggy, a friend of mine, Jeffrey, who I grew up with, saw that at the time. And he said to me, hey, gee, that was the first time, he said, I saw you really get interested in something. And then it, I went from there. And of course, well, okay, you're going through school. What are you going to do? That perennial question: what sort of job are you going to have? What sort of job are you going to do with your life? And we had the careers advisory newspaper or something come around with all these possible, career options. And I just honed in on being a trainee gardener at the Adelaide Botanic Garden. As I said, we'd had the Noel Lothian book, and that was almost a sacred text in the house. And we'd been in Adelaide until I was about age 7, so I remember the Botanic Garden. And I wrote away and got all these forms and filled them out. And then I got an interview with Dr. Morley at the Botanic Garden. So up we trooped to Adelaide, and Mum was with me. Dad had passed away by then. And we're in the technical section where his office was. So where was it? I think I was told where his office was. I just bounded up the stairs, knocked on his door. Mum got left behind, which was good actually, because I just was talking to Dr. Morley one-on-one. And, I'd said in some kind of form, I was interested in ferns. Well, he was going to try me out. So then he started saying, well, tell me about the reproduction lifestyle of ferns. So I was able to tell him that and use the correct terms. So that went over very well. And he said, look, it's almost like we struck a deal. He said, look, I was in year 11. He said, I would like you to go and do year 12 and we'll hold your application over and then you send me the results from your matriculation and we'll go from there. And it's like, I'm sure we must have shook hands, but it was like it was a deal. And we both kept our ends of the bargain. So I went and did matriculation, passed that, got an A in biology, I got a D in maths. I haven't got a maths brain.
No, most plant people don't.
I find going from plant biology thinking to maths thinking, it's like you've got to double the clutch sort of thing, and there's grinding gears and terrible noises, and I can do it, but it takes a bit. So anyway, sent the results off, and that was it. So this shy country boy ends up in the Botanic Gardens in Adelaide, and it's just total immersion in the plant world. So there's this riotous profusion of plants all through the gardens. Everything's got a label. All the gardeners, senior gardeners there, they're all plant nerds. And it's plants, plants, plants. And then you do your studies with TAFE part-time. You're released 1 day a week, and then you did 1 or 2 night lectures. Did that for 3 years and came out the other end a horticulturist, albeit a very, still a lot to learn. And it was interesting. I've always been a book nerd, and before we started the podcast here, Twiggy and I were comparing notes on latest books we've read. So having a library is very important. But one thing, I just noted it took me 10 years from when I was qualified out working with plants and doing different things to the point where I was started to take my learning from the plants rather than just rushing off and looking it all up in a book all the time. Noticing what was growing, what wasn't, what was happening. That was really an important point. So horticulture was my starting point, and it was an amenity horticulture. So that's, parks and gardens and flowers and shrubs and all that sort of thing and trees, which is great. And I did that for quite a while. And through various circumstances, I ended up sharing a house with a fellow friend who's a horticulturalist, Michael Thames, in Canberra. And Michael was going to the Heirophant. It's now the H dispensary in Griffith in Canberra. And he did, what did he do? He did the homeopathic first aid course that was run by Tim Thomas and Kim Dudley. And he came back and he raved about it. And then he started doing some of the lectures that they were holding. And I sort of followed suit. And I went and did homeopathic first aid. And then later on I did I started studying their homeopathy course, and I lasted about 1.5 years. And then I sunk beneath the waves with the materia medica. I just couldn't get my Virgo detailed brain just couldn't quite get a grip on the homeopathy materia medica. It just seems every remedy seemed to do everything everywhere all at once, and I couldn't quite discern. But look, it was a blessing because that wasn't quite my path. I was more the plants. But I kept hanging around and doing courses and things and being interested. Matthew Wood came to town in Canberra. They got him to come several times, and I sat in on his talks. And I was buying odd books and things. The other sort of point, there's always these points where your life changes, although you don't quite realise it. Matthew Wood's book. Was it the Book of Herbal Wisdom?
Mm-hmm. Great book.
Yeah, I bought that. Now, when was I at the time? I think I was, oh, we're on the farm. Yeah, we're on the farm in the Tinderry Mountains then. So I bought the book, a herb to a chapter. It was great. And it's a book with a bit of magic in it, definitely with a bit of magic in it. And had the chapters on the Solomon seal and the teasel and the sweet leaf and whatever. And I went to the Heirophant and was like, have you got these plants? Have you got these tinctures? No, no, no. And that's when the horticultural herbal thing started, because the horticultural brain just went click. Well, we're just going to go and grow it, aren't we? And I started off with Solomon seal and found some plants and just grew them and divided them and waited and kept tending them and whatever. And off it went from there. And then, of course, if you got one herb, that's not enough, is it? You've got to have another. And it's like a detective story. You get interested in. So I found Solomon seal. So then it's like, well, okay, what about sweet leaf? So I found that, grew that. What about teasel? Okay, found that, grew that. And I started adding plants. And then it got to a point where I was talking with some of the staff in at the Heirophant. Oh, I'm growing these different plants, and maybe in a couple of years' time, we'll have a herb walk or whatever. And one of the ladies there, Reve Hodges, I mean, she's passed away now. She said, well, why don't we do it now? I'm thinking, oh, geez, She said, yeah, look, I'll pay $50 to come out and we'll go and round up a whole heap of other people. So we did. And they came out, and I had this array of plants in and out of pots and in the ground, and everybody loved it. So, we would do between 30 to 40 plants a day, which doesn't sound a lot, but by the time you've finished, your head is reeling. But it was really great to see people's reactions and connections with the plant. You know, so it's not something in a book, it's not something in a bottle or a tablet. Here it is, the real living, breathing thing. And that was great. So I did that several times and then did workshops about, making tinctures. I even got very fancy at one stage, and I did one thing about making homeopathics. So we made a 3C of ruta graveolens. So different things like that, and then making specialist tinctures. So I was always, I feel like I was skirting around the edge of the herbalism sort of area when really I was actually right in the middle of it. But it took a long time to work out what my particular niche was, what my particular contribution was, what my slice of the herbal pie was. Um, Now, I did study to be a professional a herbalist, but it came back to that original intersection of you're a horticulturist and you're a herbalist, and the overlapping it in some kind of Venn diagram, and the almond shaped overlap in the middle is where I work, and it's like, yeah, growing the medicinal herbs. Um, and that's what Herbology Hub is founded on. Um, so I was talking about that journey to the students at Switched On Health, and I was trying to get across the point that it's a strange, twisted, curvy journey. It's not a linear path, and there's many points along the way where you think, what am I doing with this? Where do I fit in? Because you see people doing other things, and oh, do I do that? What's my contribution? Where do I sit? And of course, all the time it's staring you right in the face. And also this realization that there's all sorts of niches in this whole natural medicine world. And we need people to fill those niches. We need people who are good in producing skin creams with a herbal base. We need educators, we need plant growers, we need the whole clinical base, and that's a huge area with all sorts of specialities and herb walks and all sorts of things like that. So it's easy to sort of, when you're studying herbal medicine or you're interested, thinking like you pancake everything gets flat packed, as in, oh well, you study to be a professional herbalist and then you're in clinic, AB. But there's all these other things that can be done with that knowledge. So I was trying to paint a broad picture and encourage some of the students who didn't necessarily, see a straight path to clinical practice, that there was a whole heap of other things that they could do as well, and to just try and bolster them up and give them some ideas. Yeah, that was the nub of the talk.
Yeah, wonderful. Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's such an important point there. I think you called that talk the other pathways less traveled,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I
I
really,
had a
I
Robert.
really like that
I had a
name.
lovely Robert Frost quote, an American poet. He said, "Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference."
Has made all the
Yeah,
difference.
it's great, isn't it?
Very familiar with that quote. It's a good one. Yeah, but in the realms of like herbal medicine in Australia, in terms of what is being taught in schools, accredited style learning in schools, it's really only teaching one pathway, right, for the most part. Like, I mean, there's different, you could study TCM, you could study homeopathy, you could study herbal medicine, naturopathy. There are kind of, but they're all practitioner level training, and they all, particularly, I can only really speak to the Western herbal medicine side of things that I've been trained in, but it all is like a straight line, like you say. It's kind of all leading everyone to the same point of the same kind of clinical setting, the same kind of dispensing, the same kind of like diagnostics and treatment, strategies and things like that. Like, there's not much space for in those spaces. There's not much training of all the different pathways. Like, I mean, for a start, if your pathway is practitioner, even within that, there's so many different kinds of practitioner that you can be, more than just what is being taught traditionally. Like, when I say traditionally, what's currently being taught in the schools, there's so many other types of practitioners you could be. You could be a practitioner in nature. You could be a practitioner that works with other practitioners. You could be doing group consultations, which is a bit of a newer emerging kind of thing. The kind of things like what Dominique Liv Kamal does at the medicine room, where she has like a group naturopathic consultation, and is teaching whilst kind of treating a group of people with herbs. And there's like all these different ways that you can be a practitioner that aren't necessarily being taught in the schools currently. And that's just the practitioner world. There's so many other pathways outside of being a practitioner as well. Like you're saying, you're that egg, you're that intersection between horticulture and practitioner. But there's like, actually, it should more be like a flower of life, and because there's so many other things that you are too. Like, you're a medicine maker. You make your beautiful creams, that you've sent me some of, and your tinctures and your other herbal preparations. You're a teacher, you're a horticulturalist, you're a herbalist, you're a researcher really as well. Like, and you're so many things. And we're all so many things. So yeah, just that I really appreciate that you came into the Switched On Health space, and is opening up people's minds to some different ways that they can be different possibilities. Because I feel like at the moment where things are at in the modern mindset feels a bit limited in the herbal realm in Australia, and it's nice to have people open up the imagination, open up the possibilities of the different pathways that we can take with herbal medicine. Definitely.
Yeah, and giving people giving people permission, not that they need permission, giving people permission to go and do their own crazy, funky, nichey thing, that they're good at,
Mhm.
and to be
Mhm.
okay with that, and see that it fits into the whole. Um, because there's people have got all sorts of amazing talents, and we really want to foster and encourage that. We want
Mm.
we want a whole range of herbalists out there doing all sorts of herb things, and there's huge amount of niches to fill.
Mhm.
And sometimes I think, you know, you can think, oh, I don't know if I'm doing enough, or is this niche? At first I thought, what, just teaching people about growing plants, is that, I just thought, is that big enough for me to roam around in? And it's like, yeah, it is. There's a lot. In the
Mm.
Herbology Hub, it's like, I don't really have an advanced schedule of talks. It's almost like, what's the next inspiration? So I sort of move around a little bit, and people can suggest a talk, but it's interesting what you draw on, like come from the horticultural side, basic growing skills. You can focus on a particular plant. We've done nettles or yarrow, or you can get really geeky. I mean, I'm doing one on water at the moment, just looking at water, the chemistry of water and physical properties of water. So it's funny. I did this Bachelor of Applied Science, environmental studies, and I thought I'd have a career in that. So this is another little, what could you call it, avenue I explored. And getting a job in the environment sector, that never really sort of worked out. And I thought, oh, was that a waste or whatever? I don't know. It was a lot of effort, but it worked out, because when I moved to be into the Canberra area job market, having a degree was really handy, because it sort of, not that they ever used knowledge in the public service, but it got you in the door a bit. So it sort of worked out there, but also it helped as in just the breadth of knowledge that we covered. It was soil science, it was geomorphology, it was biology, chemistry, the whole broad range. But here I am with Herbology Hub, and having that background is just gold, because it allows me to then bring some of that knowledge and distill it and put it into an easy to understand form for people to learn more about plant growing and some of the other science aspects. So, I mean, the the nub of that is, no experience is wasted. And I was saying that to the Nature Switched On Health. You might think you've done something, and you look back and think, oh God, that was a waste of time. What did I do all that for? But it always comes back later on of some use. Yeah. So nothing's wasted. No experience is wasted. None of these, if you do a whole range of little courses or whatever, none of that is ever wasted.
No, it all just kind of goes into the tapestry of your experience, and it's really good to be following the curiosity and following the interest, and sometimes you don't always know where it's headed. Like I'm mentoring a few different students locally at the moment, where they're like, I don't really know what I want to do, where I want to be. I'm like, so don't get frozen in indecision. Just do something. Like
Yeah.
go get a job at the local nursery, or go look for the next herbal book and get stuck into that, or go buy a bunch of plants, or just go learn with someone local. Most people are blessed with somebody local that they can find to learn some area of herbal medicine. You never know what it could lead to. There might be someone else in the room who's actually going to take you down another path. You meet another student who's like, wow, sparks fly, let's actually collaborate and create something. Or it might lead into finding another teacher, or finding just the next step. So it's just good to like surround yourself with the kind of people that are in the herbal realm, or in the kind of that are heading in the same direction. Even if they don't know where they're going either, it's like we're all in this like explorative space
Mm.
together, and keeping our curiosity and our minds open, and being open to learning from one another. And then, yeah, as long as you're following your like where your heart says yes, and where your mind is engaged, then
that's a beautiful thing. And for some people that might have to be online learning, and that's why it's wonderful that you have the Herbology Hub, and there's more emerging spaces of different kind of engaging online herbal learning spaces in Australia. It's been like outside of the universities, just learning with single people or small groups. There's more emerging. So lucky for the people that live out in the middle of nowhere, rural Australia, and aren't fortunate enough to have somebody local to learn from. But yeah, there is so much out there. So you don't always have to know where you're heading. Sometimes it's more about the journey, and then it's like once you get there, then you're like, all right, that all makes sense why I just did this. It makes sense for
Yeah,
me why I
yeah.
spent so many years in hospitality and event coordination and doing soundstage and lighting and theatre work. I did all this stuff in my past, and actually all of that now comes into play with all of my herbal event coordinating and all of my workshops. So I'm like, wow, I get to always call upon all of that hospitality and admin and all these different random life experiences that I've had all actually come into the tapestry of what I actually have available to offer now. So nothing's ever wasted, as you said. I
Yeah,
really,
it's
I really
it's a,
like
it's a
that.
good point about people having patience with themselves to just be in a position of discovery and not knowing,
Mm.
and that's perfectly okay. And as you say, just explore it. Um, in the talk, I had the analogy of Hansel and Gretel. They head off into the German folk tale. Head off into the forest and they leave a breadcrumb trail, and the birds eat the breadcrumbs, and then they're lost. And anyway, Wicked Witch and all that stuff. Um, well, I sort of turned that around and I said, you need to follow the breadcrumb trail, as in there'll be these little moments, like for me, it was the Matthew Wood book. And my uncle and auntie giving me this motley collection of plants, and then going to the Hierophant and saying, oh, have you got the so-and-so tincture? And they said, no. And then taking the initiative and just growing the plant, and it took me, oh God, it would have taken me 2 or 3 years to get enough plant stock to actually make a tincture from Solomon Seal. So it's sort of like this patience of being in the unknowing of how the hell all this is going to, make sense. And it does, but you've just got to, it's just patience and being with it. And like you said, following that curiosity trail, you know, you hear something, read something, meet someone, oh, that's interesting, and not discounting that. Because we live in such a rationalist society, everything's got to be in a scientific paper, double blind, placebo tested, or whatever, that we discount all these other ways of knowing that, you get a feeling about a book, or you think, oh, look at that course. Gee, I'd like to go and do that. Read the book, get the book, read it, go and do the course. You never know. On the course, you meet someone, you have a conversation, could change your life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and and it's, yeah, like you said, it becomes this melting pot. It takes a while, but you actually synthesize all these different experiences and learnings and readings and encounters to do your own version of herbalism or natural medicine or whatever you want to do in the life. Like we all start out doing someone's course and copying someone and being a bit of a mini me. And that's a stage. And then you get more experience and more influences, and you start to put your own flavor on it. Bring your own personality and talents to it. And that's great. I think sometimes we're not taught what the actual learning path looks like. I think we're given a romanticized, not a romanticized, a fictionalized, abstracted, ideal version, like school, tertiary study, career, you know, bang, 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 all in a line. And it's just not like that at all. It's all over the place. Dead ends, U-turns, what the hell am I doing? Dead end jobs, crises. Like, I worked in horticulture for a while, right? And I ended up as looking after parks and gardens in this regional council. And I hated it. It was just like the total nada of my life in a way, Anyway, but that gave me enough impetus to go and study the science degree, which sort of gave me a bit of a life raft out of that. So yeah, I just want to say that you blend all these diversity of experiences together, and it's not wasted. And eventually, if you stick with it, it does make sense. Yeah, and you don't want to necessarily follow someone else's recipe. Just make your own recipe.
No. Yeah. It's not a one size fits all. We shouldn't all be kind of trying to aim to get to this same point of what kind of herbalist, that we want to be.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, and I mean, I
yeah.
sort of say, well, I was saying to myself for a long time, it's like, well, there's plenty of clinical herbalists and homeopaths, but there doesn't seem to be too many plant growers around,
Mm. And there's not many people doing both as well. It's kind of like one or the other too. It's like, I'd love to see more practitioners actually growing a lot for their dispensary. Like Lucy Jones, I was showing you her books earlier in
Mm.
the UK. She does, and also a bunch of people I've interviewed on this podcast as well, like Sandra Parker and Dipunka Makrides, and, a handful of people that in Australia that do grow and make their own medicines they dispense. I'd love to see more of that. Or there's people I mentioned, Dominique Liv Kamal in the Sunshine Coast, and she's really, for anyone listening to this that didn't catch that interview, she's very passionate about helping naturopaths and herbalists create their own dispensary, not so much from their garden, more from like you buy your dry herb product and you make your dispensary of percolations and things like that. But there's so many possibilities there to be able to bring more plants into the space is what I'd personally love to see. But it's interesting because yesterday I saw this post on a naturopath Facebook group, and there was somebody posting, and they were just really sharing their frustration and disappointment that they did their uni degree, they've been in clinical practice for years now, and they're doing all the right things, what seemingly they're but at the same time they're not getting enough patients, they're not making enough money, they're struggling with the kind of practice that they've created, and they're just kind of at wit's end. They're just appealing to the community, being like, I'm not happy with, like, I suppose, who I am as a practitioner, and I don't know how to get the kind of patients that I want, and how to make the money that I need to support my family, and how to and then in all the comments is so many people being like, yep, relate relate to all of this, and and it's a sad thing, and I think it's a big part of what we want to do with the elder trees. We want to support all the herbal paths, but really want to support the practitioners to really liven their practice, really bring the aliveness and possibility into that space. And I'm not sure if you saw it. I sent you a link the other day, but we're running a survey at the moment for herbal practitioners, and it's all, we want to run these different programs, reprograms. They're reprograms to reprogram them, and like we want to run these retreats, like Healing the Healers retreats, where herbal practitioners can come and they can I suppose, like, kind of put all of their stuff out on the table and completely reassess who they are as practitioners and who they want to be, and like, what was their original dream? Maybe their original dream was something more like their childhood, pulling down the branches and the roots and mixing it with mud in a pot and spooning it to the family members. Like, it's like, bring it all back to like pre I don't want to say institutionalized and indoctrinated. I don't want to say colonialized. I don't want to use all of those like, industrialized, commercialized kind of terms, but we're in the modern world, and we kind of end up often with this really narrow kind of like, you can't fly, just here, clip your wings and do what everyone else does and tells you to do. And it's like, yeah, we want to kind of create all these spaces where we can help build the community and off the screens and off the internet, even though the internet's a wonderful, valuable resource and a great way of keeping community connected, but bring people together to really, completely shake up and reassess what kind of practitioner they want to be, and then help give them the tools to, maybe they want to bring more sacredness. Maybe they're missing that piece. They're actually missing the spiritual connection to their practice, or their, the some might say like the shamanistic elements, or they're missing something. There's something like just missing for a lot of people. There's just something missing. And for a lot of them, it probably is like they need to have their private allotment and grow some of their herbs. And maybe they're not going to make all of the medicine for their practice, but they can maybe just make 10% of it, and they can be proud of like, look, I get to dispense, and now I feel more alive, and now I feel more connected to what I'm offering to the world. And
Ooh, there is so much in what you've just said. I love what the person said. I'm doing all the right things. And it's like, maybe
yeah.
that's the issue. How about you start doing all the wrong things? Not that we're encouraging law breaking, but
No.
yeah, we get molded by all these influences. And like you were saying, layer upon layer upon layer of community expectations, or what's the norm, or what's the things that you normally do. And it takes a brave spirit to sort of to buck that, or do something different, you know? Yeah. My friend Jeffrey, I shared early on, I grew up with him in Robe and whatever. He paid me a wonderful compliment. He said, "Oh, you've always marched to the beat of your own drum." And it's like, yeah, I have. So I guess when you hear someone say that, I've got the practice and I've got qualified and I've ticked all these, boxes, and it's still not working, it's like, well, have you lost the sound of the beat of your own drum? You know?
Mm.
And what you were suggesting, like getting together in a special way and having them just lay it all out on the table and not be judged or criticized or whatever, and be able to look at it again and hear from other people what they see, that what to them is like they can't see. It's the blinding obvious probably right in front of them that
Mm.
they don't realize, but to other people looks like something amazing. I think that would be very, very powerful. And also like the validation that it's okay. It's okay to be at that stage, because we all have it. Certainly I had it. I'm thinking, what am I doing? Am I fiddling around here? Do I become a practitioner, qualified? Do I do this? Do I do that? Um, it's not a 5-minute pondering. It can sometimes be months or years. And to share that with other people who have been there or are going to be there or have got past it would be a very, very powerful, supportive thing to do.
Mm. Yeah, and that can happen decades into your practice. Like I know multiple, like I can't even begin to count how many practitioners I've spoken to that have stopped being a practitioner, 20, 30 years in, because they've lost the aliveness. They've lost, they're like, it's kind of petering out. Like they're bored, or they're just lackluster, or they're just kind of like doing the same thing, or they're just not thinking outside their own box that they've kind of put themselves in, or that society's put them in, or, whatever factors have been at play, that, we kind of get comfortable in our ruts maybe, and just go, okay, well, this worked, so we'll just keep replaying that. Or whatever it is, whether it's
Mm.
boredom or we all need to be evolving. So yeah, I really hope in those spaces to see elders alongside emerging practitioners, all sharing all of those different perspectives from along, so that someone just coming in can be like, oh wow, this is the viewpoint of someone 30 plus years in, and what their wisdom is, and like what issues I might face along the way, and how to be prepared for that, because often it's those conversations that we're not really having much,
Yeah, yeah.
in the practice in those realms.
Um, and to like an honest conversation to get people beyond the looking good, like, oh, everything's perfect, and have someone just absolutely brutally honest talking about their experience. Oh, I did that. Oh, that was a mess. Oh, but then it worked out that this happened and that happened. Yeah, give people permission to have their own unique journey, and you know,
Hmm.
and sure there'll be things that won't work and things that will. But another thing I just picked up from hearing you talk, Twiggy, was where is the spirit? Where's the aliveness? You know, to find that, because we live in times where that's not really honoured, and
Mm.
and it gets pushed to one side. Robert A. Johnson, he's a Jungian psychologist. He wrote a whole lot of books, and he talked about his life being in. So he was an American, and for him, he was a person who was had a very strong feeling component in his personality. If you're into Myers Briggs or whatever, very introverted, very high on the feeling area, and he felt like in America he was in an alien planet, and and like he was like totally out of time, totally out of touch. But he had an enormous contribution in his books and his talks. And then somehow he found he journeyed to India on a trip or whatever. And he found a place where he felt more at home in the culture there. And he went back to India over, 30, 35 years. But he talked about how difficult it is if you're an intuitive or you're more feeling component being in the current society. And I'm not making it wrong, but it's not a society that gives value to that sort of endeavors. Because we just get propaganda 24/7 about we're all supposed to have 3 or 4 investment houses and a private superannuation fund, and we've got to have 2 cars in the garage and a big fancy house, and we'd be doing this and doing that, and we're overseas, 2, 3 times a year, and it's very seductive, and it gets us into comparison and not feeling enough, and yeah, even if you think that doesn't have an effect on you, it's like this subtle propaganda all the time that creates this discontent, or am I really doing enough? Am I enough? Do I have enough material stuff? Um, and Yeah, that can be very corrosive to your sense of what you want to do, the value of what you do. Um, and I'm not putting all that. It's not that that's bad or anything. It's just, um, it's this one size fits all success picture that gets propagated all the time. When there's many different success wears many different faces, and being able to grow a plant successfully and make medicine from it, and then be able to have that dispensed to someone who heals. I mean, is that not success? From A to
Mm.
Z, and that happens every
Mm.
day.
Yeah.
But you'll never see it on the main news. Flashing headlines: herbalist grows plant, heals person of psoriasis or something. It just goes under the radar.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I was walking actually the other day, my daughter and I were walking along. We'd actually been offered, both of us had been offered a free chiropractic session because there was a fellow that was really wanting to support the work that I'm doing. And it was in a very fancy area, and we were walking along, and she she said, Mum, we're so rich. Like, we just know what all this medicine is growing around us. Like, aren't we just so rich? Like, we just
Wow.
have everything we need right here. Like, 'cause we'd found shepherd's purse growing on the side of the road, and some native plantain and different things. And yeah, we were just reflecting on what it means to be rich. Just like, there's different ways of perceiving wealth. And yeah, so anyway, what you were sharing just made me reflect, like, think about that. And but yeah, there is, yeah, often that one size fits all mentality of this is where we're all kind of trying to get to. We're trying to get to, like, being set up for retirement and having all the boxes ticked, and this society's idea of wealth and security. But yeah, there's actually, like, yeah, so many ways we could be living. And yeah, and then it's funny, that the herbal medicine doesn't get the fame that it deserves. Like, when there's miracles happening every day in nature, there's miracles happening every day in what people are when people are taking herbs. Like, there's so many stories I hear of what happens just with plantain that I'm like, oh my God, why isn't that in the front page news? Like, somebody just, like, healed overnight. I'm not meant to say that they cured it, but it's like, it
Yeah.
happens. It's like, overnight, something that has been plaguing them for their whole lives can be, you know, completely healed. And that's not just making the
Yeah,
front news.
exactly. The
Instead, some
local
other
radio station's
sports thing,
knocking
or
on your door. It's all these quiet miracles. Um, yeah, and you
yeah.
hear it, and they are life changing because I hear it through herbal friends. They sort of say a few things from what's happened with people going to their clinic, anonymous, of course, protecting people's privacy. But it's like,
Mm.
think stuff people struggled with for years and years and years, and they've been able to, the practitioner's been able to have the insight to see, oh, okay, this, it's this remedy or that plant or whatever, and profound changes. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, it seems to be under the radar anyway. Um,
Yeah. There's some shifts. I feel like there's shifts, there's changes happening. There's a kind of a close-mindedness or a narrow lens that I feel like is opening up. I'm observing more and more. I know that during COVID time, that was a really eye-opening time for a lot of people, and that was a nice little shake up. For the, dare I say, mainstream, or just for the common people in the, this modern Western world. But yeah, it's easier to slip into complacency when we're really comfortable and kind of get just distracted by this hedonistic pursuits of pleasure. Um, but yeah, I feel like I diverge a bit with all of that, and just want to kind of, like, swing things back around a little to like all the possibilities that we do have in the herbal realm. And there's so many people actually that are really interested, that they just don't necessarily even know where to start. Like, I get a lot of people, they come to me, write to me, or come and get in touch with me and say, I want to study herbal medicine. Should I go enroll in this university? And I'm like, okay, well, do you want to be a practitioner? And, well, actually, I don't know, or maybe no, but I want to learn herbal medicine. So where can I do it in a structured, long-term kind of format? And yeah, often I say to them, what we were saying before about following the curiosity and being explorative. But I would like to see more spaces emerge, for the different pathways. So you and I have been exploring primarily, you gave a background in your personal horticulture experience, but we have been talking mostly about the different kinds of practitioner that you can be, and some exploring that space. But outside of being a practitioner, there's so many realms just within horticulture, or within commercial medicine growing. There's so many different types of pathways, career pathways, lifestyle pathways that you can have. Like having a nursery is one, which is, there's a lot more of those. There's some really great herb nurseries in Australia. Like the Herb Cottage and All Rare Herbs and Herbalistics, and there's some great online nurseries. They exist, but then there's the kind of the market gardener, herb gardener, that could be just growing to have fresh bundles at the market, or selling just their fresh medicine, fresh herbs there. or making their cottage gardener that just grows and makes their medicine to sell at the market or in their local community. And we've got our, small, medium, large scale commercial herb growers that can be growing for dried herb production or fresh plant tinctures, or for their local community, or to be sending around Australia. There's like so many different pathways just in medicine growing, but we don't really have many schools. We have there's this ACS School of Distance Education. I know that they do a commercial herb growing course, which is really great. I haven't actually spoken to anyone that's done that, but there is a structured online learning environment there. But then we've got the beautiful Herbology Hub that you've created. That's a lot more personalized, a lot more personal and engaging, and I don't want to say it's more alive because I haven't learned in that other space, but you have a lot more engagement with the teacher, with yourself, and a lot more of a say in the direction. Someone can come into the Herbology Hub and say, "Hey, can you actually do a class on this?" And you'll
And, yeah,
and you'll do that.
which happens. Yeah,
So it's very alive in that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, yeah, and then I've got a thing about growing these endangered herbs, these quirky herbs, and whatever. And you know, as you've said, there's niches for people to grow at all different scales, but also people who maybe I could call them herb guardians or something, as in they pick one herb um, that is a bit scarce or rare or endangered or whatever, and they just specialize in being the grower that has stock of that plant that keeps the plant growing.
Like that's yourself,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
You're
That just keeps
the
that
most
plant
that person for
growing,
me.
and they get stock, and then people can either have the stock or it can be harvested, and you can really do it at any kind of scale. Like Tony Hoseman does his golden seal growing in his backyard. Okay, so he's got about maybe a half acre backyard, or yeah, or what would you say, 1,000 square meters, something like that. It fits it all in. Um, I've got stuff that fits in, well inside a half acre. And so, but having people who are sort of guardians, proponents, they stand for the herb, they keep the plant stock growing. That's really important. And you don't necessarily have to go off and do a uni degree or whatever to do that. It's like the Martin on Switched on Health asked, where do you think people could start with their herbs, and that connection? And I said to him, look, just start with growing something simple. Start with calendula. It's bulletproof to grow. It's a lovely, happy plant. You can do all sorts of things with it herbally, and that gets you going. That starts the journey of building up your skills of growing the plants. And I mean, there's lots of wonderful books and things, but there's no substitute for just getting out there and starting to grow it yourself and getting a feel for the plant. Like being able to go out to the plant and look at it and think, oh, okay, it needs watering, or it needs repotting, or I've got to weed it, or whatever. So you've got a connection with the plant then, and what's happening with it, how it's responding to the environment, how it's responding to your care. And, okay, so you master calendula. What do you want to do then? Pick something else, lemon balm, and it'll take over your garden. Or do, another plant. A lot of it is getting a connection with the plant and just increasing your skills as you go. But coming back to the plant all the time, even if it's not growing well. Okay, so what's going on? Have I got the watering right? Is the potting mix right? What about the aspect, shade, the temperature? And Tony Hoseman didn't do a horticultural certificate, degree, whatever. He just picked this plant and he worked out how to grow it, and he did some research and he just had a go, and he's done an amazing job. Um,
Mm.
you know, so he's been a proponent for golden seal, you know, and he's got a few other herbs that he's kept going. But to have those plants where they've got like someone that's their champion, you could say, and keeps that plant growing in Australia because you know I get in different points because I grew a whole lot of herbs, right, and I also killed a whole lot of herbs and trying, you know, I had about 130 different species, which is just completely nuts. Um, you know, I remember Ken Atherton saying, "Oh, I got 120 species," and I thought, "Oh, come on, Ken, you can try a bit harder than that." But then when I got in my arrogance, um, and then when I got to that level, I thought, "Oh, yeah, it's totally out of control." But you know, and I missed some of the plants that I couldn't keep growing. You know, it's water, not enough water, not enough potting mix, not enough time, not enough, you know, not enough me. But you know, I really did see it set an impossible. You know, it was overreaching. Really, it's impossible to keep that number growing unless you know you've got a botanic garden, you've got a staff or something. But having a range of people who can take on these herbs and keep them growing, because in Australia we've got all these quarantine laws and things, and getting seed into Australia and plants into Australia is a thing. It's become more difficult. I understand the reasons
Yeah.
why we've got biosecurity laws and measures because we don't want, you know, pests and diseases coming in, but sometimes they're a very broad brush. And, you know, I've had plants like I had Lamartium growing, and it's like, I don't know whether you can get the plant in Australia anymore. And, you know, it died out on me. I think, oh, if I'd only kept that growing. And, you know, and then there was, what was it called? Eastern boreroot. It was a, related to osha, but it was the Eastern American species, you know, and it grew really easily. But somehow I didn't keep it going. But you know, to have people who could be champions for all these herbs, and there's a lady in the Blue Mountains. She's into basically herbaceous perennials, amenity plants, and she's got the importing plants into Australia process down to a fine art. And she finds these plants overseas that, you know, overseas nurseries um, have, have developed, and she's able to get the plant imported, navigate the whole customs quarantine thing where it's got to grow in quarantine for a while, and then it gets released. So you know that would be a skill for someone to pick up to just focus on that and getting some of these different species back into Australia. So we've got our own plant stock to grow, and we can grow
Mm.
the plants here. You know, I mean that's a huge thing. As in, we've got a whole range of climates in Australia, and we can grow an enormous range of these medicinal herbs. You know,
Absolutely.
and they work here because they're grown in the Australian conditions, and we're here in this country. You know, often you'll hear critique like, "Oh, well, you know, that's to the energy of that country and it doesn't grow here." And I think, well, you know, the plant grows here and I've used it and it worked. So, yeah. Um, so having that, I think that would be really good. And it's just something simple that people could do that has a profound benefit. You know, you have someone
Mm. Oh,
that's
yeah.
the
If any of our listeners wanna get really skilled at bringing seeds and plants into Australia, then you'll have a whole lot of herbalists like us
that's
willing to
right. Yeah,
pay you for
lining
it.
up behind you with with their shopping lists. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great niche right there. Oh my gosh, I've been trying for so many years to get so many species into Australia from Europe, and it's just, yeah, I've never been able to work it out.
Yeah, look, it used to be
So
pretty
that's cool.
straightforward. I'd order a lot from Rico Keck from Strictly Medicinal Seeds.
From
Yeah,
America.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you looked at his list and drooled and all over it and dreamed, and then you had to compare it to the quarantine icon database, you know, to see whether what they said about it, and then you had to interpret the bureaucratic language that yes, okay, it was okay or it wasn't okay, and the way you go, and that worked. and then they updated the database, but then a whole lot of laws came in where you had to have a phytosanitary permit from the organisation sending the seed, and that involves a whole lot of plant treatment and records and things, and it just didn't work for strictly medicinal seeds, So yeah, we need someone who's got the brain to navigate all that um, legislation, rules, and whatever, and find some of these nurseries that can do a phytosanitary permit and import it. Yeah, all Rare Herbs seem to be able to import stuff from different suppliers. They've always got a pretty good range of seed, but we've been focused a lot on European and North American herbs because they've got such an amazing range of great medicinal herbs. But there's a lot of material from India and the Himalayas, endangered herbs that we could grow here. And Australia now has a substantial Indian population. And so the market is there. So that's another whole world that could be explored. Ayurvedic herbs.
Yeah.
Because, there's still a lot of wild harvest. The same story, plants endangered. I look at them and you look at some of the plants, you think, oh, well, that wouldn't be a hard thing to grow. But, getting the plant stock here and then lining it up with someone who wants to be its champion. So what am I trying to say? There's plenty of room. There's plenty of room for people to grow plants. There's a whole diversity of plants.
And find their niches, like there's so many. You just got to get creative, you got to get resourceful, you got to get connected. You could be like, okay, I'm going to create a hub, I'm going to be the drop-off point for all of the small scale medicine growers in the area, and then charge a fee, they drop it off, people come, and you could have like cooperative kind of spaces like that. It's something I'd like to see emerge. I've started running recently in my area a thing called Herbal Circle, and it's like a physical, people come together, and it's meant to bring together like growers, makers, practitioners, home herbalists, everyone to come together and talk about their struggles, their joys, their passions, their paths, and then from there see where it can be woven together. So the last meetup, which was the first one, so we're going to have our second one coming up, but the last one, there was like multiple people there that really want to develop like kids herbs programs. They're like, I want to do like nature kids things, offerings that are like herbal medicine based. And there was actually like a whole bunch of people there all with that passion. And there was someone that had actually done training with someone in America, and then someone that had actually developed this other program for it. And everyone was sitting there with this dormant passion that's just sitting there unrequited or unexplored, because they didn't have that next little bit. They just actually really needed someone else to bounce off, or someone else to collaborate with, or be offered the place to do it at, or the and just actually that week I'd had someone approach me and offer paid work doing kids nature things, but I don't have the time or the headspace to do it, so I could like funnel that over and say, okay, here you go, you guys go contact them. So like creating those kind of community spaces, which can also be online, we can create them online too when we can't meet in person, but just getting together, getting outside of any potential competitiveness, or not even competitiveness isn't even the right term. It's like we kind of get a little bit, we're all behind our little fences, and it's like we're all struggling out for ourselves. And when we kind of like bash down the fences and go, okay, how's about this is all shared land, and how do we all be custodians and cultivate this community together, and how can we bring your strengths, how can we find your weaknesses and strengths so that I can support your weaknesses and encourage your strengths, and how can we weave them together to create beautiful things together. And so that's something I get all passionate and riled up about.
While you were saying that to you, I just had a very visual image. Those old-fashioned switchboards with the plugs and the big
Yeah.
sort of like someone rings up, the herbal switchboard. Yeah, good morning. Black growth cohosh guy. Yeah, one moment, please. Plug it in. So
Yeah,
there's
yeah. I love it. That's
yeah,
great.
it's that connecting, and like you said, we're all in our little reality tunnels, and the connection in the community is the important thing. Put it into a bigger context always, because there's
Mm.
undoubtedly there's always someone who's either been at that step and had some experience, or you're the solution to someone else's problem. Lady Naomi Ingleton, have you come across her, Twiggy? She set up Herb Connect.
Yeah, the name's
Yeah,
familiar, but tell me
she's
more.
in. I think she's in. Where is it now? Alpine, Victoria. Is it Bright or somewhere around there? She runs an apothecary shop and does classes and things. So she set up Herb Connect, and it's in a little bit of dormancy at the moment, but not dead. Basically, it's like an online brokerage of herbal materials, and that's something that an issue I've been touching on in my talks, and I'm still discovering, in that, if we're growing herbs and we're connecting with each other, it's like we need to create a new economic climate, an economic basis for it, because we want everyone to actually, what's that old phrase? A living wage, be able to do their work and be able to support themselves and their family. Because I said it at the estuary talk, I just said that, how many people are from a farming background, and farmers who end up having to sell wholesale at the farm gate, and don't get the full profit margin from all their hard work and the risk that they take. So what I'm trying to say is, like,
Mm.
and I'm still getting words around it, a new economic structure that supports everybody fairly and equitably. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and that could almost be a whole talk of itself, I think.
I think we could pretty much just run the whole podcast on you and I having a yarn,
Yeah,
going down all the rabbit holes,
there's a lot of rabbit holes,
exploring what's
but
possible.
yeah, it's like making it bigger. It's like, what's that old phrase? A tradesman is worthy of his wage, and we're all. I mean, that's
Mm.
gendered language, but we've all studied and got experience and put a lot of effort into this, and we're worthy of the relevant economic support. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
Yep. Yeah, and it's interesting along that way. I actually was doing some research the other day, because now that you're bringing in the economic support side of things, because there's a lot of support for Australian farmers, food farmers, from the government, and there's lots of different funding available out
mm,
there for farmers. But because like herbal medicine farming is such a small
mm,
niche, and it is mostly, really small, mostly small scale. Marlene herbs down in Tasmania is quite large scale, but it is small scale, and I feel like, that in itself, there's a really important role there for someone to come in and shake that up and bring the herbs into that space more, and get that opened up, the funding possibilities for farmers, to be opened up into culinary and medicinal herbs, because culinary herbs are medicinal, and that's a whole kind of market in
mm.
itself. But like, just seeing farmers getting more supported in the setup, and in the running of their farm, because there is actually so much funding out there, yeah, from the government and from different groups, organizations, associations that get together and want to support farmers. So we just got to kind of get herbs,
Yeah, yeah.
a seat at the table as
Was it
well.
sort of dig our way into the crowd, sort of thing, politely, of course. No elbows and
Plant our seeds in there.
yeah.
plant our seeds and hope they don't get like weeded out. It's like, oh, there's some dandelion again, get it out of here. And it's like, no, 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 it's
Oh, bloody
medicine. Wait.
cleavers. Yeah, yeah. There is a lot of funds, and I mean that is another art form, writing a funding application. Yeah, I've had a
Hmm.
little bit of
Yeah.
experience with it, but that takes a huge amount of time. Off on another
Yeah.
tangent, like I'm into stamp collecting, and I wrote a proposal to the ACT government for some funding for a stamp show we're putting on, national stamp show. And it's like the amount of time it took. And then it's like, oh no, sorry, that's a, and that's how it goes. You're one of many that are putting an application in for a limited pot of money, but that's another art form skill that's needed in the mix. I guess the thing
Absolutely.
is, like, we all tend to be one person entities or two or three person
Hmm.
entities trying to cover a whole range of skill sets where if we can develop the community side, the mythical herbal switchboard where we're connected, and it's like, oh right, oh well, you go and see Don. He's the proposal master writer for Herbal, proposals for funding, and but then there's a larger
Yeah.
picture of how it all fits in. What's the most critical need? So there's like a structure where we can all see where we fit in. Like we make our own structure.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I really like this idea of the herbal switchboard. It's a really cool imagery, actually. But something that I mentioned to you earlier before we had this interview was that the I've been working for years on a herbal directory, and state by state, and then also, whether people are a teacher or a grower or a practitioner or different things, specifically focusing on practitioners that like incorporate plants, like living plants, into the space, and are thinking kind of a bit outside the box. But anyway, so there's this herbal directory we've been developing for years, that is only just now, as of last week, is starting to get drafted onto our website. And when we finally release our newsletter later this year at some point, it'll have a kind of a printable directory in there. But then, and now talking to you, I'm like, oh gosh, how can we actually turn this into a switchboard? Like that's
well,
actually,
yeah.
like actually having a online space for that is a really, really great project.
Um, in the permaculture books, and some of the permaculture writings, they talk about communities doing almost like a skills and needs assessment for, what does the community need? Butcher, baker, candlestick maker, tire changer, mechanic, herb grower, whatever. It would be good to do something like that in the sort of natural medicine herb space, as in charting or plotting, almost like a graph or something. What do we got? What do we need? What's missing? You know, um, okay, we've got
Mm,
clinicians, and we got all the areas covered in the sort of clinical space. But what about the growing space? What about the
yeah.
making space? The interconnecting, the herbal switchboard space. How do we find out about these things? But it's almost like a holistic assessment of what have we got and what haven't we got, and what have we got a need for that we need to develop. Um, you
Mm,
could sort of do that with although your directory would lead to that. It would. So you've got
mm,
I guess you've got, Imelda Muggins grows lemon balm at Braidwood or whatever, and if you want lemon balm, go and see Imelda. But also,
yeah,
what
yeah.
what's the skill? What are the skills that are out there? Almost like a skills directory as well as a what you do directory. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep. Yeah, and maybe having like kind of like a community notice board, having a having a community notice board in there. Someone's like, "Oh, looking for, lemon balm in
Mm.
Victoria, like, this quantities," and someone's, like, offering, like, a little classifieds notice
Yeah.
board pin-up area for people that are, like, looking for people to help with their projects, or looking for collaboration, or looking for suppliers, or looking for, you know, or promoting their supply, okay, I've got excess produce this year of lemon balm. What do I do with it? Who wants it? Like, trade or sell, or yeah, there's so much there. And then, that's kind of,
Mm.
that goes into the community herbalism realm, like there's people, especially like Cat Green, doing a herb fest, and the estuary learning space, which is kind of specific to practitioners and teachers, but isn't necessarily broadly further out than that, but it is a community space, and then you got like Monica Francia down in Tasmania, with what she's doing, and there's also the work that I do with the elder tree, and that, like, that's all the community herbalism as well, that there's not really any formal training in, just the realm of like the events, the like bringing people together, the joining all the dots, and kind of the bringing in cohesiveness, community. People would call it, some people outside of the space call it industry, I suppose, the industry people, but I don't really like that terminology, but like that is the yeah. Yeah. So yeah, community herbalism is like a whole pathway in itself, that, I consider myself a community herbalist, and it's a fun realm of herbalism, and also much needed. Like, we need more and more spaces that bring people together and do like the root and branch, or the estuary learning conference, or the herb fest, or, there's not many herbal gatherings, or herbal, yeah, things that bring together the community physically, and kind of online. There's, some Facebook groups and things like that, but we need, I suppose, it'd be nice to have more switchboard spaces, community notice board spaces,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there's
the
like a whole.
herbal switchboard. Yeah, yeah, one moment, connecting you now.
Oh,
Well, it'd
look
be
out,
great.
Christopher! You give me ideas. The next thing, I'm like, all right, it's happening now.
I feel like I
I
just
love
doubled your workload.
it. Thanks.
You're welcome. Um, yeah, getting look, we've come ahead a long way. I remember several years ago looking at seeing what was happening in America. They got these big herb gatherings, and I think, oh my God, why don't we have something like that in Australia?
Mm,
And not the technical professional conference, but it's sort of pardon me, people from a broad base of the natural medicine community being able to come together. And and now, if you look at it, we've got them. There's Herb Fest, there's the Estuary Learning Conference, there's the Root and Branch, and there might be a few others. They're gold. That is just so
mm,
important. So yeah, progress is being made, and I guess it's like all of what we've been talking about is us creating our new natural medicine world, because sure as eggs, no one's going to give it to us or create it for us. So, you know,
mm.
let us create it and make it functional, that supports us and meets our needs and meets the needs of the community who need natural medicine.
Mhm. Yeah. Definitely. I there's also another there's the Queensland Herb Society as well, that I just wanted to add to that list of they just had a gathering a couple of weeks ago. I think it's their 21st birthday or something. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Just out of Brisbane, but they have it's open to the public, not just to members, but they have herbal gatherings as well, bring together, have speakers, and market stalls and things like that. So they're a beautiful space as well. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, they are emerging. There's more and more emerging than what there was. I think all of our dreaming and wistful thinking and actioning is all like paying off. We've all got similar
Look,
dreams, and
it's,
just got to like action it.
yeah. Well, in our speaking now, it's being created. It's being brought
Mm,
into reality. And just one thing while it's in my brain before it flies off again. Um, like they're finding your niche and what you want to do, as in it refines itself all the time. Um, so I'm 63 and I'm still finding and refining what I'm doing. Um, so, I spoke at Estuary Learning and I spoke to Switched On Health, and I was looking back at that and I thought, wow, that just opened up another new areas for me. They're really enjoyable. Uh, Now, I wouldn't have been. What backed that up was like doing Herbology Hub. I think it's been going for 2 years. So speaking online to the membership there, and then when you get to the Estuary Learning Conference and someone hands you a microphone, it's like, oh, this is easy. I'm on home ground here. So yeah, I'm still learning, seeing new areas, discovering, what I'm good at, where my contribution is. Yeah, it evolves over time.
Definitely.
So there's no, yeah. What's that? A friend of mine has a message on his phone. He says, "Oh, blah 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 blah, leave something or other." He says, "I'm not there yet." In his message, and I always want to ask him, so where's there, Michael? So in terms of your niche, you're forever traveling towards there, wherever there is. It's ongoing.
Yeah, my friend has a quote on his wall. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm on my way.
Yeah. Well, it just starts with that. Those first pot of herbs, those tin can, jam tin, bits and pieces out of someone's garden, and
Yeah,
off you go. And you just don't know where
absolutely.
it's going to end. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's true what you said before, that like just us talking about it here, there's like hundreds, probably thousands of people in the years to come that are going to listen to this, and we've got a little manifestation portal it's my little ulterior motive agenda with this podcast. We all just
I
are
love that
dreaming in the world that we want to create.
manifestation.
It's great if you and I get together over a cup of tea and be like, wow, this is amazing, let's do all this cool stuff, but then we're like, actually, let's get like hundreds or thousands of people even to like listen to this conversation, and then they're going to be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
let's do this, so they have their own sparks fly, and then they start talking to their friends, and we get a much quicker ripple going. And so on that note, I'm going to use this little opportunity to let everybody know, because I haven't promoted this yet. I haven't actually spoke a little whisper of it, except for to a couple of people, yourself included, but I'm going to say it now, is that I'm going to be taking down a group of people to Tasmania for a farm tour. Going to visit Gould's, Greg Whitten there, and Marlene Herbs, and going to see Monica Francia at Rocky Top Herbs, and going to see Sandra Parker, and maybe Southern Light Herbs. It depends if we've got the time and the budget, but I'm going to be taking people to show them all different pathways in herbal horticulture and medicine making, particularly all of the places we're visiting grow and make on site, but they also, like Marlene Herbs supplies to PPC Herbs, with the fresh plant tinctures, and we're going to get to see everything from very small scale to the largest scale herb farm in Australia that I'm aware of. And so, yeah, it's going to be a great farm and medicine making tour. Just going to like put that little plug out there for it. Get in touch if anyone's
Oh,
interested.
that's
But you have to
that's
be like genuinely, not just like, oh, that sounds like fun, let's go along to that. Like, you have to actually be having the means to be creating a farm, or like to be, you need to either already have a farm or apothecary that you're wanting to grow further, or you're about to emerge into that seriously. It needs to be in the real beyond the dream action stage of really, yeah. So we want to take focused people along to really be building on what, you and I, Christopher, what a big passion of ours is seeing Australia get more self-sufficient with our herb production. That's something that really unites you and I, and doing this herb tour, which I'm pretty sure you're going to be there. You're coming, right? That's the plan.
My brain is ticking over now. Please send me details. Yeah,
Well,
that that
I'm it's
that
it
is amazing. Yes.
yeah. It's me actioning a dreaming that you and I have had for a long time, and you've been actioning it, especially in the endangered herb realms, like your work with like Goldenseal and Solomons Seal and the plants that you're working with there, and really getting us as a country to stop importing these rare and endangered herbs from overseas unnecessarily when we can be learning to cultivate them ourselves. So that's that's a really beautiful thing. And my reach is kind of a bit broader on wanting just to see generally our herbs be more produced in this country and not having to get things that have been potentially radiated or fumigated or that have lost their life force before they even get here,
Mm,
or that are
mm,
massively monocropped in conditions that we don't even know. Like, I mean, I've been to I've been to countries and seen organic food on the side of the road with dogs running over it and fumes, and you
yeah.
don't even know where things come from when you're buying it from overseas. Sorry to scare anyone with that, but yeah, basically, I want to see us like really having that connection, and I know that you do too. It's much more sustainable. It's much more connected. We're going to have much more potent, alive medicine. So yeah, so I suppose for our listeners, for anyone that's interested, I'm going to have in the show notes the links for Christopher's offerings at the Herbology Hub, and
Mm.
yeah, and stay tuned. Subscribe to the Elder Tree newsletter, I suppose, if you want to know about the tour coming up. Yeah, but just get in touch if you're interested to come along.
Oh, that tour
And
sounds interesting. What's the time frame, Twiggy?
oh, thanks. It's in the second half of December. So it's probably going to be about a week, in like
Okay.
first to second week of December, around that time. Like, because that's when like the elderberries are ready, the European elderberries, dare I say, because most of Australia that I've never seen anyone outside of Tasmania growing European elder except for myself. I'm sure there's lots of people, but I haven't seen it with my own eyeballs. So, it's wild growing along the streams there in Hobart. So we can do like wild elderberry harvests, and linden will be in hopefully right at the perfect
Oh,
point to harvest. And,
fantastic.
there's a few things of St. John's wort, it's yeah, I mean, often can be more like the summer solstice, but when I was there on the summer solstice the year before last, it had finished. It was coming to the end of the season, so hopefully it's perfectly timed with a whole bunch of things like that. And just summer in general is a really nice time to do a farm tour down there, because that's when everything's in full swing.
I can see us going down there with station wagons full of empty bottles and alcohol and labels and
Yes,
secateurs and marauding the herbscape in Tasmania.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It's
that
beautiful.
sounds amazing.
Yeah, and
Okay.
getting to see all the different, ways of doing things. Monica Francia at Rocky Top, they've got, they have a beautiful business model, very small scale. It's manageable with two people, well, one and a half people, because Monica's partner works at Gould's as well. So, well, they both work at Gould's. So it's really two people working half time, managing a farm. And they do like community herbal boxes, like people pay to have like a seasonal herb box with fresh and made herbal products, and people can come and harvest from the farm, like pay to come and harvest from there themselves. And they have some really interesting business models even just within that one. And so yeah, going along to these different farms and seeing that small to medium, Greg Whitten has just introduced after decades his first piece of machinery, but his whole farm is like no machinery whatsoever. It'd be amazing if Pindari was still happening to be able to go there. That's not,
Oh, wow.
that
Oh,
they're
okay.
not not happening anymore. So but yeah, we'll get to see lots of different models, and we'll get to see Sandra Parker, that she grows all her herbs in the backyard and then wild harvests, and so that real kind of urban practitioner dispensary style.
Hmm.
um she's, you know, she was Ken Atherton's biggest protege, so she's sitting there really holding that legacy more than anyone. So yeah, getting to go and spend some time with her is pretty amazing. Um, and yeah, there'll
That
be lots
is
of fun to be had. So
That sounds pretty good, pretty good. So it's like a
yeah.
drive around tour, people come in their cars sort of thing, or
Yeah.
uh,
Yep. Oh no, well, we'll probably get a hire van. We're still kind of working out the finer details, which is why I haven't
oh,
quite
okay.
released the proper thing yet. But I'm imagining
Oh,
we get a hire van.
well, folks, you better sign up now. A herbal road trip. It'll be crazy.
Yeah, people more local, Victorian people and Tasmanian people could have their own vehicles, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, I've just been enlisting someone this week that'll do all our herbal infused meals for us, and yeah, it's gonna be quite an event. So yeah,
Oh, I'm so
get in
glad you
touch.
mentioned that because I remember seeing it. You sent me an email, but it just anyway. There's lots of things going on, and I've forgotten. So um, I'm very glad you've reminded me. I would love to be there. That would be good,
Yay.
really good.
Yeah.
And it's like these things where you go to see someone's place, you pick up so much information, and it really makes it real. Like having been at Pindari with Ken, I learnt so much just by looking around, and his shed was just as junky as mine, and how he integrated everything into the garden. Um, but yeah, you learn a lot, way more than a book. Uh, yeah, in person, talking to the people, seeing how they do it. It's like living, breathing examples. Yeah, that then you
Hmm.
can bring back home.
Yeah, and even just going and
Oh,
seeing like Greg Whitten's tools, his hand tools that he's all adapted, like he's adapted so many because he's not relying on machinery. He's really adapted some incredible tools for harvesting and processing herbs, which is and it's just such a beautiful space to step into his tool and processing
oh
sheds
God.
and seeing all of his. I can see his book behind you. People could only hear, they can't see the video. I can see your book collection and see that you've got his
Yeah,
book
this
there
is
that,
this is a small fragment of the book collection. Most of it's in storage at the moment, but you just saying that about Greg's tool collection. That is another whole enterprise of its own.
Mm.
Specialist herb tools, herb growing tools.
Yep.
Whether it's the sifting screens and the special little hose, or
Yep.
the root washer or the dryer. I mean, it's like, oh
The
my
garbling
goodness.
garbling screens
So
for
there's a
like,
whole,
dried herb production. Yeah. The chafe cutter, like the chafe cutter herb
there's
cutting
a
things
whole,
and
oh yeah, yeah. Oh God, Ken always used to go on about his chaff cutter.
yeah,
I
I got
think
to
he'd
see
had
it. It
it
was so
busted a
good.
few times by over
Yeah.
eager students, and he was very zealously protective over the thing. I didn't want to go near it. It looked bloody lethal, to be
Terrifying.
quite honest.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah. Well, Greg
exactly.
Whitten's got a pretty new
Um,
one that he's adapted. He's done a fair bit of work to adapt it and make it a bit safer and more so you don't lose your arm in
yeah, yeah.
it.
Yeah, so what you said about Greg Whitten and his specialist tools, I mean, that is another whole niche for someone to occupy in, specialist dryers and, as you mentioned, garbling screens and all the sort of different hose and weeding and tools and root washing screens. I mean, and then you've got. I mean, I got my own herb tincture press made by a local engineering firm. They had these large pieces of steel hanging around, and they put them all together and fitted a 5-ton jack into it. But then they sort of I had all these stainless steel pots and things, and so I got them to make specialist pressing pans and things out of it. So there's all that side of it, specialist equipment for herbalists who are either manufacturing or growing or
Mm.
that's another whole world unto itself. I mean, I just went to them with a picture of what I wanted and trusted that they'd put it together. They had this sign on their fence saying, "No job too big or too small." I remember going there with a coffee pot, and the knob had come off the top of the plunger. They welded that up, you know. But
Nice.
so yeah, that would be a great thing. But I like the sound of the trip to Tasmania. That is a must. I've got to make that happen.
Mm. Yes, yes, definitely. Yes. Wow. I feel like we've just kind of explored so many different, some the tip of the iceberg of like so many different kind of career pathways and possibilities for people, outside of just the classic be a practitioner, um, or have a nursery. There's so many other aspects, and pathways that can be traveled. So, yeah.
Well, we're making our own ecosystem, if you want to give it a biological label. So there's room for everything, you know.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And so I think, yeah, some of the takeaways from the conversation is definitely about building more community. Yeah, yeah, definitely building more community and finding our niche, and just following the curiosity and seeing where that leads us, and just breaking down the picket fences. And
So I guess what we've been talking about is you go on an interesting journey, and not to try and think of it as being some kind of linear progression from A to B to C to D. You might go A, Z, P, Q, R, C, D, F, G, and that's the beauty of it. Um, and that there's a whole ecosystem being created in Australia at the moment with niches for everybody to do all sorts of things. There's clinical work and growing herbs, and the herbal switchboard that we talked about. Um, Even making specialist equipment for herbalists in all sorts of ways. I mean, you know we're only limited by our imagination, and I guess thinking and talking about it as a whole ecosystem, not as just fragmented parts. So, and there's plenty of room for people, absolutely plenty of room. And of course, my specialist thing with herbs is that there's people who take on a guardianship of one or two species, and focus on growing it and keeping it available, for the community. And of course, Twiggy mentioned the upcoming Tasmanian herb tour late December for serious growers. That sounds fantastic. I'm already thinking and planning about how I can get on that tour. So we talked about Twiggy's proposal to have a herb tour down in Tasmania in late December 2025. But also, maybe one thing I'd like to loop back to is the importance of all these little courses and that people put together over time, that they only exist for a certain amount of years or whatever, just due to people's circumstances. Pindari was there for, I don't know, maybe it was 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and then it didn't continue. But there's lots of these little courses all around Australia where people are sharing their wisdom and their learning, often many, many years in the gathering. And these little courses, regardless of whether it's leading to any kind of accredited qualification or whatever, just put all that to one side. They are some of the most special things and some of the most amazing experiences you will have to connect with some of these people. And some are online and some are in person. I'd just like to encourage everyone to participate, because there's nothing worse than the regret years later. It's like, oh, I wish I'd done that course, and of course the founder goes on to do other things, or they pass away, or it just becomes impractical to continue, or circumstances change. It's absolutely the unique experiences to take advantage of, and you never know what it's going to open up for you. So, whether it's offerings on the Elder Tree or on the Herbology Hub with me, or there's heaps of people offering things. We were talking before about I'm going to call her Kaja, and I can't remember
Kaya
the proper.
Strauss-Kova from
Oh, yeah,
Herbal
with her
Yeah.
really specialist courses on how to make skin creams. I mean, that is amazing. Like, you don't want to miss that. And there's people with just decades of experience that are sharing with you to be on these courses. So, yeah, and support them, because these people are worthy of support, and there really are unique offerings. Yeah. What do you think, Twiggy?
Yeah, I think that all sounds great. I'm in. Definitely. Yeah. Make use of it while it's there, because you never know the next minute when it's gone. So yeah,
Look,
it's
things change. I used to think that herbalists live forever. We've got all these amazing herbs and things, and why wouldn't we? But I think that was slightly unrealistic. But we're people like everyone else, and circumstances and life changes. So yeah, you take advantage of these things while they're happening.
Beautiful. Great message there. Well, thanks, Christopher. I really always love our chats, and this is part 2 of probably a many-part conversation we're going to have here on the podcast. I just wanted to thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and experience and passion, and I get so fired up when we talk. It's great.
A pleasure, Twiggy. It's always great to talk, and what I find is it just becomes so important to share your life experience with people. As in, share with people the things. Gee, I wish someone had told me when I was sort of making my way through the wilderness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've learned over time, like it just be profoundly generous with people and other businesses, and we've all got a part to play. We can't each of us be the whole, and as we talked about the community, creating the community where we support each other.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for your time, and I look forward to our next chats.
No worries, Twiggy. Thanks very much. Great to be with you, and great to be with everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Herbal Education segment of the Elder Tree podcast. Stay tuned every new moon as I interview more wise and inspiring herbal educators and herbal lore keepers from around Australia. If you would like to go deeper with the podcast journey, you can become a member of the Elder Tree Trove on Patreon. Contribute as little as $2 per week to access free content from our interviewees, and also access discount codes and opportunities which are exclusive to our members. You can find us on Patreon by going to www.patreon.com/theeldertree. Other ways that you can assist us in getting our offerings out there to more people in Australia is by subscribing and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and on the Spotify app. Also, liking, commenting on and sharing our social media posts actually has a really positive impact and helps us to reach further with the message from all of the amazing herbal lore keepers that we interview on this podcast. Thank you so much for your support, and have a most wonderful day.